Okay, we're really close. We got one more thing we said we wanted to do. We wanted to make the controls for that wireless display visible or invisible. That's our last task in automation. Let's do that really quickly. So we have the ability in the block controller to change the .isInvisible property of a control to true or false. That'll make something visible or not. However, you can only do that for controls that are built within the block controller already. So in this case, we're going to need to pull the information that we need and bring it to the block controller so we can make this happen. Let's do that really quickly. I'm going to go over to our Immersive plugin, which is what we are going to change. It's got a couple of text fields in here. We're going to expose those using control pins. We, in this case, want the IP address and the session key. That's the two bits of information that we want on our UCI. And I'm going to make a tag for these. This is the Immersive IP, and this is the Immersive key. And back in our block controller, I'm going to add two more controls, which will both be text displays. Let's make one control that's called Immersive IP. That will be an indicator because I don't want them to edit it, but it will be a text indicator with an input pin. And then I'll make another one that's called Immersive key, which is also an indicator that is text that has an input pin. And we'll just wire those two bits of information right here. So that's Immersive IP, and that's Immersive key. And then those two bits of data we will add to our UCI, and I will place them on my UCI. Now, like I said, we only want these to be visible when the user has selected HDMI 3 for either of the displays. And we could have done this with a layer. I could have said, you know what, let's put this on another layer, and we'll make the layer visible or not based on the video routing options. That's fine. But if I did that, I would then have to further validate that I only want this layer to be visible when we're on HDMI 3 and the user is also on this tab of the UCI. That seems like a bit much. I can do this quicker with my visibility. So I've created these two options. That's perfect. Let's create our block controller for it. And we'll just make another function out of this. And this function we're going to call show or hide immersive data, right? If either the left display or the right display is currently on HDMI 3, then we're going to make these visible. If they're not, then we're going to make them invisible. So we have our if statements. And here we need to validate two different things, 1 or 2. This is where we get our OR gate or our OR block. Go to our operators, this block that says and, that can be converted to an OR. So I'm going to grab the yellow block, snap it in there. We'll change this to be an OR, and we need to fill in both of those inputs with something that we are validating. So what are we validating? We're validating whether or not the UCI is currently showing the wireless as its label. We know that will be the case if they've made a change because we've already made the function that gets that real feedback from the NV32. So let's just analyze display1 selects string. If display1 selects string is equal to what? We'll do an equals by using our operators. If it is equal to our variable for HDMI 3, which happens to be the wireless one, right? Or if the right display is equal to wireless. Now in this case, I'm getting one of those blocks that's really long. I'm not a big fan of long blocks. I'm going to convert this OR to use external inputs. I think this is a little bit more legible. It's telling me if input 1 or input 2 is valid, we will do a thing. What is the thing that we're going to do? We're going to take our Immersive IP visibility, and we're going to set its isInvisibility to false. Falsely invisible means that it is visible, right? And we'll do the same thing for our Immersive key control. And then we'll use our else statements to say, hey, if neither of these are on the HDMI 3, then I'm going to set its isInvisibility to true to make sure that that is not present. And that is done. And then all I got to do is I have to add that function. Let's add that function into the master function that does all of our video routing, right? We'll go back up here. Here's our master route video function. I collapsed it earlier because I said we'd never need it again, but you never know. Sometimes you got to make a change. I will expand that, and I will add our new function of show or hide immersive data. We'll just slap that there at the bottom so that every time the routing changes, we do one last check and say, hey, is anybody looking at that wireless display? If it is, we're going to show those or not. I can collapse this again now that I'm once again done with it. We'll save it, jump on back to our UCI, and let's see if that works. If I click on wireless, voila, those controls show up. That is true for either side of this. If neither one are there, they disappear. Again, these are small little things that just add a little bit of intuitiveness to your designs that the user maybe not know that they want or need, but it makes their life a little bit better. Now, it's worth noting as we looked through this script that you may have found there were times when you just thought to yourself, well, yeah, I'm doing 2 event handlers. Couldn't I have done that with 1 event handler? Isn't there a way to somehow grab this number and shove it in here somewhere else like we were kind of talking about earlier? We're scraping the ceiling now of the block controller. We are getting to that realm where we are doing maybe more work than it feels like because the tools of the block controller do have limits. Whereas if you go further with Lua scripts, then you can make them even more agile.
Hey, Nate, this is really cool, but it's even easier when you use real Lua.
Yep, thank you, Jeff. That's exactly what I was going to say. So if you realize that you're at a point now where this script wants to go the next level, then Lua is probably in your future. All right, so this script is done though. You've seen that we have added a lot of automation to this design with not a lot of work. It's really just about figuring out if you have the tools, and you probably do, and then seeing how to apply them. All right, we're gonna wrap up that section, and we'll see you in a little bit.